As a no-deal Mad Max Brexit looms on the horizon, Theresa May, with the quiver that's in her arrow, her Brexit deal, put Brexit in quotes because it sounds more like Brexit in name only, this deal that she's worked out with the European Union is hated by members of her own party and is hated also by people who are not in her party, meaning she's unified the parliament that they greatly dislike the deal that she's trying to put forward. From the standpoint of the Brexiteers, it's a worst scenario, meaning you were better off staying in the European Union. She wants to make this argument about taking back freedom of movement and all this other stuff. But ultimately, it puts you, one of the provisions that she's agreed to has to do with the Irish border. And she's kept the European Union, you could say, under the jurisdiction of the European Union, for the duration of the backstop if they can't work out a deal. Now, the interesting part to this is the determination on whether or not they can exit this based on May's plan removes agency of Britain, meaning it's not Britain's choice anymore. Under her guidelines, it would be a combination of Britain gets a say, meaning a delegation of Brits, another delegation from the European Union, with an independent delegation. But what this means is Britain does not have sole discussion in its own affairs. The Brexiteers have hated this deal. The Remainers have hated this deal. And Theresa May is going to have a hard way to try to get this particular deal through Parliament. Now, here's the thing. She's going on a media blitz. And she's going into this kind of election-style selling of her Brexit deal. The argument that Theresa May needs to make is this is the only deal that's on the table. It's either this or no deal Brexit. Now, the people who are in Parliament, like Jeremy Corbyn, have wanted to be able to put petitions on this bill and change, or amendments on this bill, to change elements of the bill. Well, you can understand the problem here. If you've negotiated a deal with the European Union, you've negotiated a specific deal with the European Union. That deal can't necessarily be tweaked and prodded. And some of the people who want to tweak and prod that deal wants to put in poisonous apples so the deal would never be accepted in the first place. You have some people who are full on this no deal Brexit. I don't know how she gets this through Parliament. I suppose she doesn't either, which is why she's doing this media blitz. Now, part of this media blitz, she has demanded that Jeremy Corbyn meet her for fisticuffs. And I mean this in a political sense. She wants to debate Jeremy Corbyn on this particular Brexit deal. You can understand her position here. Her position is he doesn't have anything in his quiver. This is the best we got. It's either this or no deal. And the opposition is just playing opposition as opposed to putting forth some real, genuine idea. I don't think she's necessarily wrong on this. It is not in the opposition's interest to put up a hard deal that you can attack and you can vilify. That's the job of the Prime Minister, which is why her deal is being attacked and vilified. I'm not for or against Brexit. I've been in the middle on this. My only position on Brexit is within the European Union structure, can Jeremy Corbyn enact the policies that he wants to enact? Or is he going to run afoul of the European Union like Italy's government is running afoul of the European Union? And if that answer is yes, then yes, Britain should be out of the European Union. Britain needs to have control over its own borders and its own jurisdictions. Now, Jeremy Corbyn, I suspect, has a position similar to that, but Jeremy Corbyn can never say that. The public has decided that it wanted to leave, and so he's going along with this idea of leave. But it's hard to know what he really believes about this. But I suspect his position is more akin to, what is it, the guy named Tony Benn, which is more Eurosceptic, but from the left. She wants to have a debate with Jeremy Corbyn. Now, I'm enamored by this because, if I'm not mistaken, once before when one of the prime ministers wanted to have a debate, or one of the leader of opposition wanted to have a debate, the prime minister kept saying, we debate on prime minister questions all the time. Why do you need to have a separate one? But in this case, Theresa May wants to debate Jeremy Corbyn. Fair enough. Theresa May challenges Jeremy Corbyn to televise a debate on Brexit deal. The prime minister says she is ready to take on the Labour leader as she continues public relations offensive over this Brexit deal. Hey, Theresa May, why don't you bring it to the House first and see whether or not the House votes on it first, as opposed to doing it the way that you're doing it, which is getting this approval from Brussels, then bringing it to the House. I'm saying the difference between the two, there is a difference. If the House votes down this Brexit bill, then there is no point in taking it to the European Union to get ratified in this case, because you know your parliament is going to vote it down. You going with this particular route, bringing it to the House after the fact, I guess there is a difference in those things. But I'm of the mind that figure out what you're going to do first. Figure out whether or not your parliament is going to accept it before ever even taking it to Britain. Why are you taking it to Brussels if you don't have an agreement back home in the UK? But that's besides the point. A televised debate between Theresa May and Jeremy Corbyn on the Brexit deal is nearer to taking place after the Prime Minister issued a personal challenge to her Labour rival. With May desperate to sell her agreement with Brussels, both the UK public and the MPs, she is engaging in a fortnight-long public relations offensive. Right here, in an interview with The Sun, Mrs. May said, "I am going to be out and around the country and I'm going to be talking to people. I am going to be explaining what I think the deal is right for the UK. And yes, I'm ready to debate with Jeremy Corbyn because I have got a plan. He hasn't got a plan. Be careful what you wish for." In response to May's challenge, Corbyn said he'd be eager to take on the Prime Minister. He doesn't have the choice in this. This is a forced choice. Doesn't matter what he wants to do. He's forced to take the Prime Minister on in this case. Otherwise, Labour would look weak, and Labour would look like it doesn't necessarily have a plan for Brexit. If you're a Prime Minister in waiting, you want to look like a Prime Minister, in which case you better have a plan and a way forward. Let's see. Jeremy Corbyn would relish a head-to-head debate with Theresa May on a botched Brexit deal and the future of the country, a Labour spokesman said. Some people wanted to add other elements into it, meaning people who were on board for a no Brexit. I can understand why. People want to know what their options are. They don't necessarily want to be put in this forced situation of Theresa May's deal or nothing at all. Because if you're putting in that situation, what does nothing at all means? Like, you don't want a situation where the only thing that's running is Theresa May's deal. You want to know that people who are going for the no Brexit has a plan forward just in case that happens to be the case. Because Theresa May's plan as is, with the polling as is, and with what people have said in Parliament at this point, she doesn't have the votes to get this deal passed. It is hated by Labour. It is hated by her own party. It is hated by the Brexiteers. It is hated by the Remainers. She would have a hard time getting this deal through. Not to mention, Labour has every interest in voting this deal down because they want to provoke a second election. If a referendum is off the table, then the only thing that you can get from the standpoint of the public deciding is an election. Whether or not this is going to take place in the way they think, who knows? But all incentives is to vote down whatever Theresa May puts up. Jeremy Corbyn is going to have to get on the debate stage and explain why this deal sucks and what he would do as an alternative. That's the way to win. You can attack her deal continuously. Yes, that's true. But you have to attack her deal to some degree with showing some variance in why what you are putting forward would be a better alternative. I suppose you could spend your entire debate dodging and not necessarily being clear on what you want, but that will hurt you in the long run. I would make the case that if Jeremy Corbyn is indeed a Prime Minister in waiting and he's trying to show himself as a valid Prime Minister, part of that has to be to attack this deal with relish and vigor while simultaneously putting forth your own idea on what you believe or how you want this to play out. With an understanding that a no-deal Brexit has to be considered and has to be one of the things that's in your quiver. You always have to have this ability to be able to walk away. If your enemies or the people who are in your opposition, meaning let's say the European Union, if they know that a no-deal Brexit is the terror of Britain and that there's no way, there's no way Britain would accept it, then you're forced yourself in a position of weakness and helplessness as the other side imposes upon you. I mean, after all, if a no-deal Brexit is off the table, then you're forced in a situation to come up with some kind of deal. No deal Brexit has to always be on the table. It has to always be a potential, and you have to be preparing for it with zeal, because it doesn't seem like this deal is going to make it to Parliament, and you need to have some contingency plan in order to be able to walk. This was the problem with the Greek Grexit, when the public voted down what the European Union wanted to impose, and then they shut down the banks and everything else. There should have been a plan for Greece to be able to exit the European Union. That had to have been an option on the table, because if it's not an option on the table, you're going to be stuck with whatever they impose. The same thing applies here. I don't necessarily know if these guys have been putting through plans for a no-deal Brexit, but they better be putting through plans for no-deal Brexit, or the Prime Minister is going to put on an amazing charm offensive that is going to change the position of Prime Ministers and the public. Good luck with that. That said, Jeremy Corbyn should debate her on this. I would say he doesn't have a choice but to. So, again, I'm not sure who's going to be here this early in the morning. Corbyn is groomed for an Obama-like role. No, he is not. There were and continue to be solutions to many of the issues that have stalled Brexit. The delay is calculated as some of the red tape. That I agree with you on. I don't think he's groomed to be an Obama. I think that's nonsense. But from the standpoint of the delays, yes, I think they want to force a ticking clock. Meaning, all right, you have this deal or nothing. What do you want to do? What do you want to do? What do you want to do? Make a choice. Make a choice. Make a choice. Are you going to go for no Brexit? Are you going to go for no Brexit? And use the no Brexit, Mad Max Brexit as an option in order to try to beat over the head the people who are not necessarily inclined for this deal, but don't necessarily have the balls to say no deal Brexit. No, Balthazar, what are you talking about? Mad Cow. Next on Richard Maddow in Italia, how the Italian Parliament could be linked to the Kremlin. I read that, I think, on my last one. I read it. What am I missing? Well, legislation is being pushed through while everyone is focused on Brexit. You mean in the UK? I read that, Balthazar. There were two. Jimmy was right. Ultimately, Jimmy was right. Justice Democrats aren't going to take over the party before the planet becomes uninhabitable. Cal was wrong and is in denial. This party has no intention of being taken over. That was on the 25th. And on the 27th, next on Maddow in Italia, how the Italian change in parliament could be linked to the Kremlin. From Mad Cow. I read that like 3 times. How dare you, abuse me, sir, saying I don't read your things. I read them. EU cannibalized Greece. Yes, they did cannibalize Greece. He should debate her. Yes, he has no choice but to debate her. So yeah, I'm not going to keep this one long. There's not, it's not much on this bone, but I look forward to seeing this debate. I've been covering Brexit, so I will absolutely cover the debate when this comes up. I don't necessarily know when. From Jeremy Corbyn's standpoint, he needs to knock this out of the park. By the same token, it is better to let the Prime Minister flounder here, but he doesn't have a choice but to debate her. So it doesn't really matter whether it's better to let the Prime Minister just kind of dangle in the wind. It is up for the Prime Minister to make a determination on what the country is going to do, meaning she's the one that needs to come up with a fixed idea because she has a deadline coming up that she needs to attend to. I think it's in December. They're going to take the vote. Corbyn's standpoint doesn't necessarily have to come up with a hard plan, wants to attack the Prime Minister, but in this case, he's not going to have a choice but to come up with some kind of plan, because in this debate, he's going to have some kind of concrete idea while simultaneously attacking the issues with this Brexit. So, Cardinal May is out regardless. Again, she is a sin eater. I love that term, because I love the imagery of that term, sin eater. I don't know who's going to replace her, though. I don't know who's going to replace her. So I feel you, Garden. When the DUP finally pulls support, the government is going to collapse. The question becomes, who takes May's place? If they vote down this Brexit, who takes her place? Can the Prime Minister retain her Brexit bill being voted down in Parliament? I don't know if she can live through that. I don't know if she can survive through that. I'm surprised she survived this long. The politicians are birdcage liners. They go from political positions to $1 million speaking events. Yes, that's also true. All right, I'm going to end this here. And it looks like Corbyn is being groomed to replace her. Of course, look at the attention media lavishes on him. Yes. Yes and no. I mean, the media attention from the standpoint of the BBC is not necessarily the best attention that they've given. I mean, there was all sorts of stuff that they were doing, like putting red, like changing his hat to make it look more Soviet and all this other nonsense. Not to mention the attention that they've lavished on him, calling the man an anti-Semite. So, yes, they've been lavishing attention on him, but Jesus Christ, the attention that they've been lavishing on him. As for May, I want Corbyn to replace her, but the idea that Corbyn is anything like Obama is nonsense. There's no way you can look at what comes out about the stuff that the man says and the stuff that he's pushed for and come up with saying he's anything like Obama, who's essentially a centrist Republican. I think that is nonsense. You are trained to focus all of your attention on politicians and ignore the men in the shadows that give their orders. I don't think this channel does that. I think this channel makes this argument that we're in an oligarchic system where, for the most part, these guys take money and do favors for the money that they take, and that they lean in the direction of the people who are giving them their money. That's what I think. That's always been the position of this channel. That's always been the position of this channel. All right, I'll leave this here. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through Patreon. Thanks all.